This is a Magic the Gathering card that is currently my favorite legendary creature to use as a commander. It is called Breena the Demogogue. Now, the phrasing on this can be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to read it and then I'm going to explain it. For 1 white black, it's a 1/3 legendary creature bird warlock. It has flying. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card and you put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature you control. So for the purpose of explaining this card, I'm going to refer to myself as the player, and we are going to have opponents of A, B, and C. So on my turn, if I have 2 creatures in play, let's say, and I attack opponent A with 1 creature and opponent B with another creature, if both of those opponents have more life than opponent C, I would get 2 triggers. Now, if you were one of the opponents, you need to know how this works because you can also take advantage of this effect. If you are opponent A and you use 1 creature to attack opponent B and you use another creature to attack opponent C, if both of those opponents have more life than you do as opponent A, you would get to draw 2 cards for 2 triggers off of Breena. And then, of course, myself, as the defined player, gets 2 triggers of +1/+1 counters. So 4 counters in total. So in theory, the ceiling of this card here is that of the 4 players, each of them could get up to 2 triggers off of Breena, meaning that 2 times 4 would be 8 triggers, meaning that I, as the player, could get up to 16 +1/+1 counters off of a single rotation. Now, the way I've structured my deck, I can use those +1 counters not just for strength, but also for utility. For example, a card like Crystalline Crawler states that you can remove a +1/+1 counter from it to add 1 mana to your mana pool. A card like Hopeful Initiate states that for 2 and a white, you can remove 2 +1/+1 counters to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Now, as the player, it's obviously not great that my opponents are going to be drawing cards. You really don't want to give them any sort of advantage. But there are ways in which me, as the player, can take advantage of their card draw. The recent release of Smuggler's Share will allow for me to draw an extra card at the end step if any of those opponents draw more than 1 card during their turn. And then, of course, there is the ubiquitous Smothering Tithe, which states that whenever they draw a card, they have to pay 2 or I get a treasure token. It's unlikely that our opponents are going to be paying the 2 for all of those extra cards they're drawing. One of my favorite win conditions is through a card called Marionette Master, where whenever one of my artifacts goes into the graveyard, Marionette Master deals damage to an opponent equal to its power. So you stack up all those +1/+1 counters on the Marionette Master, and then you're just sacrificing those treasure tokens, and you are just dealing so much damage to people's face. You can just sacrifice a treasure token and do 10 damage, 10 damage, 10 damage. So Breena is currently my favorite Orzhov commander. She's still pretty cheap because she was in one of the Strixhaven commander boxes. I would recommend trying her out. She really is a lot of fun.